What's up, everyone? Welcome to the latest episode of Power Spike, your only talk show that covers the global game of League of Legends around the world. dGon, Dom, and Monte here to break down the action. Week 2 in LCS, week 3 in Europe, and basically everywhere else. Yeah, I think that's the way that worked. But to start, we will start over at LCS because they, for the first time ever, played on a patch that no one else ever played on. 14.2. First thoughts, first looks. We're going to get picks that no one's ever seen. It's not exactly what happened. A lot of just playing the same, banning out TF and Karma, basically.
Hey, we got Karma bans now. Come on. It was slightly different.
Yeah, we got a
Yeah.
karma pick. Support
Yeah, we did get a Karma pick. Didn't it win? Didn't it just like run everyone over? I don't remember. What were your
It was
initial
okay.
thoughts on it? On just the fact that LCS getting to play that early here. We'll start with you, Dom.
I mean, I think that it's definitely an increase in like it gives people a reason to watch LCS where people before could kind of tune out LCS because of the fact that like it was late in the day, like, and then you didn't see anything interesting. It was actually like the last region to really play on patches besides for like LEC because they were just stuck in the same patch cycle. So I think that now you actually can see some really broken things. So you're gonna get some hilarity out of the game a lot of times by the time that things are more uniform, like teams have got accustomed to the patch, a lot of the super broken things will just be banned. But now you'll see probably a couple of these really early picked stomp at LCS game then be perm banned for the rest of the time. So you might get to see some really abusive and broken things in the LCS, which I think is just good to make the games more fun, add some variance to the game. Like I think one of the problems in LCS for such a long time is that there's been like a lot of disparity between the top and bottom teams. And it makes the region like less fun to watch. You have a lot of like stomps, but I think adding some like RNG to the region is honestly good for a region that's pretty unserious as it is.
I mean, I think it's interesting too because so much of the entire history of the metagame of LCS was like copying other regions' play and
Yeah.
not necessarily being the most innovative. So in a way, I mean, by having them on the vanguard of the meta, it actually may force innovation and may let them lead the meta in certain ways, right? At the very least, they can't just default to what other regions are doing all of the time. And we are going to see, I think, at least a little bit more variety and spiciness in gameplay to the LCS, which I think is exciting. I mean, the downside to this is like the reason why this isn't done, guys, is because there are potentially like very big game breaking bugs that could possibly occur. This is the reason why no esport is ever on the live patch, no matter where you are, because they don't want to introduce, potential, um, you know, very big flaws. And especially in a game like League of Legends, which, to put it mildly, doesn't have maybe the most stable code, is a risk. It is a risk of more pauses, remakes, finding crazy champion bugs. There's a risk here, and eventually something's going to happen that is going to cause a lot of controversy. But in the meantime, until it happens, I guess we can enjoy the novelty of being on live patch.
Yeah, a lot of spaghetti in LCK Challengers this weekend. There was a bug where two players went into the Rift Herald at the same
That was an
time.
L. That was
That was
just an LCK.
that was just an LCK, like straight up.
Oh, was
They had
it
to chrono
LCK?
break it. They had to chrono
Yeah.
break it. Yeah.
I don't like, yeah,
Golly.
apparently because I was like, oh, what's the problem with the bug? But apparently the Rift Herald does double damage if you have two people
Yes.
ride it at the same time.
Yeah.
Nice.
I watched it 100-0 a tier 2 turret.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was awesome. And also
I
the
mean, to be
second
fair,
person
like,
gets
isn't that turret just
yeeted
dead
all the way
anyway with
up.
like how the situation was top? Like, but you know what? It's fine.
Oh, okay. Well, yes. So bugs there. We got to see some of those pauses manifest over at LCS, but I feel like, and I'll have an interview coming out with it soon. I sat down with Mithy and Revan after Shopify upset Cloud9 and their draft was super wonky. It had like the Scion and Vayne mid and the Maokai dives that weren't great, all that stuff. They both were like, hey, it does show that you can evolve the meta. And as coaches, we're not going to really talk about the draft too much. The draft was whatever. but we're going to focus on the gameplay aspect of it. But they do want to push the envelope and try to get some of those innovative things in there, Monte.
I don't know if that's the best example because that was one of the jankiest drafts that I've seen in some time where it felt like a lot of mistakes were being made. And I was VOD reviewing that game and Insanity was in my stream and he literally told me when I asked him why the fuck the draft happened this way and like outlined a bunch of other alternatives, he literally just said, I'm not allowed to talk about it.
Yep.
He literally just said, I'm sorry, I shouldn't talk about this at all. And I was like, okay, well, mistakes were made. Everybody made mistakes in that draft. It ended up being super weird. It was a very entertaining game as a result, gotta say.
Yeah. Finally, news from me for LCS before we move to our first segment of the day. I might get in trouble for saying this. I don't care. Whatever. I'm going to be hosting on Friday LCS. So first time back on LCS for 7 years, I think. Six.
Holy
7 years.
moly.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Huge
Thank you.
news.
So I'll be hosting in the first 2 games, and then I'll be casting NRG and FlyQuest. Good one. And then TL and Immortals. So Friday, part of the Super Week. I'll be part of that. I'll be on campus. So yeah, please tune in and support, spam, all that stuff. Thank you.
That's how
All right.
expensive dGon is. You have to fire half the company just to get one half day of casting out of this guy.
Dom, I was gonna say that the reason why dGon, when he was full time at Riot, they cut him because he was supposed to do like the second stream in the best of threes when they were doing them simultaneously, and they kept Dash and laid off dGon. But who's the last man standing now? It's not Dash, it's dGon.
That's right.
He's back.
That's right. My salary was just a little too much. They had to cut my salary and basically give it to Dash.
Nice.
Love you, James. All right. And he deserves it. He deserves it. He's the best. All right.
I want to talk, before we get into our first segment, I want to talk about something, which is Dom's denial for LEC co-streaming.
What?
Yep.
I saw that clip where they just said you weren't big enough, you weren't good enough for them. What the heck happened?
Literally that. We applied. So pretty much the way it went was I had a team that I was like applying with, like when all this stuff started happening. I had a team that I was applying with. The team last minute was like, we're just not going to use our spot, like whatever. Then I found another team that was like 100% down. The team just went to the LEC and was like, they gave like a whole pitch where it's like, this is like all the stuff that he's done. Like he's even like sent interviewer Don Jake to like create Worlds content over to Worlds in Korea. Like he has this like profile. He did these talk shows and just essentially put together like just a standard pitch of everything that I've done. And they pretty much just said that like the main thing was they just said that like my viewership wasn't high enough. Even though I was like the highest viewed live viewer for literally years. They said it wasn't high enough. They said that they wanted around 20K average and 100K peak, which is like
what?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't have 100K peak. Like I've had, I think during Worlds, during most of it I was averaging like 11, 12K. Like for big matches I was hitting 20K peak. But yeah, I mean, if you don't have 100K peak, I guess you're just not getting in there.
Well, here's what I don't understand. Here's what I understand, Dom, is that because it has to
for
be
English. Yeah. So if you do it in another, people are like, oh, but this guy doesn't have it. It's like that was for English.
So what I don't understand about this is that, because Cadril has signed with Fnatic, right? So Fnatic just gets an unfair advantage by the ability to actually just put their sponsors onto Cadril's stream, right? So they're actually showing favoritism to Fnatic as a lead, as a league, and giving Fnatic a business advantage.
That was one thing that the organization that I was partnered or that I was going to partner with was upset about. Is they're like, why can't we just use our slot? Like, not everyone has access to a huge co-streamer like that. Like,
there literally aren't enough people in the English language to do that across all 10 teams in the LEC. Like, there aren't that many English language streamers that big in the entire world. Let alone ones that want to co-stream every match of LEC.
Yep.
So my point is like they're making a non-competitive environment where they're specifically saying certain franchise teams get certain co-streamers. They're not even creating competition for the
I
teams
mean,
to
who knows
acquire
if this is actually the
co-streamers.
reason? They might just like not like me, specifically. Like it could be that. I mean, I've always been on the outs with Riot. Like every single time
Sure.
that I've had any type of like situation with Riot, it's always just been like fighting tooth and nail. Like
But
for example, when I got banned from LCS co-streaming, which made no sense. Like whatever. I mean, the people that make this decision are not the people that I work with. So I get banned from LCS co-streaming. Then I got so pretty much then LPL hit me up and they're like, we would like you to co-stream LPL. So when I then contacted, right, this is spring of 2021, I was like, okay, like I'm going to co-stream LPL. They made a rule, which I'd never heard about, where they said if you are banned from LCS co-streaming, then you can't do co-streaming from like other regions. So I couldn't do, so even though LPL had offered me co-stream rights in spring, then I wasn't able to get them because I was still banned in LCS co-streaming. And then in summer I was unbanned. So then that's when I was like the first person to actually start co-streaming LPL was in summer. So it was like 6 months of just like, and this required multiple calls. Like the whole process of getting unbanned was just so tiring. Like I had to go to calls like C9, like without C9, without Jack, I would have never been able to be unbanned from co-streaming. I would have literally just had to be, I would just be banned like probably indefinitely or some shit. I had to go with Jack 2 calls. He had to vouch for me over and over again, be like, hey, this is like, trust me, like you could, like, I'll take responsibility for anything Dom does, like on the stream. Like he's not going to do anything that's like going to like jeopardize the sponsors. He has our own sponsors. Like Cloud9 is one of the brands that's actually like Cloud9 is one of the brands that they actually they don't push the envelope too much with hiring content creators that are saying like ridiculous shit. They're a pretty safe brand.
I mean, they have
so
Mango,
he was like, hey man, like, what'd you say?
they have Mango, but sure.
Yeah, besides for Mango pretty much, but like, yeah, but just in general, there's pretty safe brand. Like there's like, you can't use like the same words that you use when you speak on your stream that are viable on Twitch are not viable with Cloud9. Yeah, they're pretty safe. I had to go to so many calls with Jack, and then Jack brought like the C9 sports psychologist with us, and we're like, we're just gonna like say this guy's like working with you, like just to be like, this is like how committed we are to like not like, it was just such a tiring process.
They had to show that you were actually rehabilitating with a professional psychologist.
Bro, like you don't understand the
incredible.
amount of hoops I've had to jump through with Riot. Like you don't understand how it was. Like when I was banned the first time, all the different things, and one of the things that happened with all that was they wanted to make the story of like them rehabilitating me like throughout season 3 and season 4. They're gonna be like, look at how like they were like, okay, when you come and you go on LCS, like, and I can speak in front of camera or whatever, this is gonna show like how much we've done. Like you went from this toxic piece of shit to this like nice person or something. And I was like, I don't want this to be the fucking story. Like I just maintained that I thought I was banned unfairly. Like like that's because that's just how I felt. And the person that I worked with through the whole thing is a piece of shit. His name is Jason Katz. He was fired. Like he was also
Jason. Oh, by the way, Jason Katz, guys, is notorious in the esports industry. He's one of the OGs who he has fucked up so many things at so many different
CSGO
companies.
as well.
Guys.
He's like done fucking LCS players and stuff, and he's like, all right, I'm going to fuck CSGO, and then he just started fucking CSGO. Like he just fucks everyone over, bro. It's
yes,
crazy.
he does. He's horrible. He's horrible.
Yeah. I mean, he was fired, but that's like the thing that pissed me off so much. It's like, okay, so if this guy who made the decision is now fired because you don't believe that he is actually competent at his job, why do the decisions that he made carry over? Like, shouldn't it be like, oh, now we should look into the decisions that he made because he's clearly fucking bad at his job, that's why we don't want him to work for us anymore? I don't know, man. Like, it's just, I feel like this is just always a thing. So look, I'm fine with it at this point. My viewership is good when I'm live viewing anyway. Most of my viewers who watch me for LEC are completely used to live viewing because I've done it for so long, which is part of the reason why I probably should have been eligible for co-streaming. The fact that I've like done so much outside of just raw viewership, the fact that I live viewed it for so long, like I've created so many pieces of content. I did the Crackdown for years with Thorin, interviewing a ton of LEC players, building storylines, like actually just doing their job. And yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Like I'm not even upset about it. I'm just fine with it. Like I just expect it.
I'm just upset because like if you think about what happened at Last Worlds, one of the most kind of fun narratives was your back and forth with Kadril about like OMG and the Shy. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like he had even included in that rap video that he did. It was really fun. And so I think to have co-streamers representing different teams just allows for better engagement because you guys can play off of each other and help build up those rivalries. So like it seems to me that everybody wins in that situation and all of the teams should want to have co-streamers because it's another mechanism that you can build up hype and anticipation for these matches. So I just don't get it, man. I just
Yeah.
don't fucking get it
I mean,
because like
obviously,
it
like
doesn't
me
seem
talking about
good
this
for
is
the product.
I pretty much made the decision because I was still like going like, back and forth. And there was like a discussion of like, okay, when you get to Europe, like the team is going to bring me in person to talk to the LEC. I mean, pretty much when I talked about this publicly, like I know that this is going to piss them off and it'll just essentially be zero chance of me ever getting it. But I would just rather fucking talk about it once so people know what the fucking deal is and just be honest about it rather than sit there in every single stream and be like, so are you gonna get co-streaming this week? Like, when are you getting co-streaming? Like, and just answer the question over and over. It's like, I'm not getting co-streaming. I probably will never get co-streaming. Like, I'll just live view LEC and I'll co-stream LCS. I'll co-stream LPL. I'll just work with the leagues that actually think that I provide value to them.
Yeah, I just don't know who the like candidates are. Who are the candidates that hit that in the
Nobody.
league space? That's yeah,
No,
it's like, all
nobody.
right, we'll go get Tarek, I guess, or something, like it doesn't really
Yeah.
hammer home for me, and I think that's why I'm bothered for you, and that stinks, man. But I'm glad
Yeah,
that
I mean,
you're getting
it was just, yeah, the viewership just doesn't match. Like, they just used me as essentially a comparison point was just Cadril. Like, this is
yeah,
Cadril's viewership, this is your viewership. Like, you just don't hit that, okay.
yeah.
It's like, well, no, like, also, I'm not hitting that without like live view. Like, there's no way that live viewing when everyone else is co-streaming is somehow gonna help me hit those ridiculous numbers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's impossible, obviously. I
Yeah.
mean, they made it impossible because basically without competition, you can't even like if you were trying to hit those numbers, you can't even do it because Cagel has the live streaming rights and you don't. So it's an unfair playing field in
Well,
the
it's the
first
same
place.
thing. Well, and it's also like once somebody starts with those advantages, like it's so hard to come back. So, for example, when I got banned from co-streaming LCS, I was the biggest co-streamer. Like, I actually had surpassed LS in viewership because he like took a couple weeks off, and then my viewership was just exploding. I was getting 25K every single week for LCS, which was a big portion of it back then. And when I got banned and I went to live viewing, like my viewership was instantly for like the finals, my viewership was like 12 to 15K, while Ellis was literally hitting like 45 to 50. And it took me literally a year of like him taking breaks and me grinding the entire time to get back to the point where my viewership was higher again. Like, it's just that's just how streaming works. Like,
Mm.
if somebody establishes an advantage over you, it's so hard to like come from behind unless you have some like some type of piece of luck in some area. Like, maybe I start supporting a team, I start like fanboying over a team, and that team ends up doing really well, then maybe like that could be something that would be a boost. But streaming is not something where it's just like, I mean, streaming is not a game of like who's the better streamer gets the most viewers. Like, that's not what the game of streaming is. That's what people try to like turn it into. But I've been doing it long enough that where I know that there's streamers that are better streamers than me that just get less viewership because I'm more known in the community and I've been doing it for longer, and like their streams just aren't getting like the traction. The discoverability on Twitch is actually really bad. So people are not like going to be recommended streams and just like come back over time. Like, if you are able to do that, that's a huge, like, you're a huge exception. But normally the biggest growth that's coming down to content creators is off Twitch. It's people that are growing on TikTok that then are able to transfer some of their audience. If you think about like Dantes, Kesha, like pretty much
Cagel.
everyone who's blown up recently in the League of Legends space, it's not actually through streaming being the main thing. They get big on another platform and they're able to transfer over some amount of their audience.
Well, Monty said to these LEC requirements, these benchmarks seemed a little unfair. Some would say they're almost like fraudulent benchmarks, which get us to our first segment of the day.
Nice.
It's time for fraud alert. Thank you. Just warm it up for Friday. We got our fraudulent predictions for 2024. So let's get on into it. All right, fraud alert is here. What are some of the biggest fraudulent predictions that we could throw out for 2024? Monty, let's start with you.
Yeah, I wanted to do this just because we have early indications about teams that could end up being frauds as the spring split goes on. So we could revisit this later. But I'm just going to go ahead and call out KT Rolster right now. This is not the KT of last year. This is not the
No
KT of last
T-Pain.
year. I don't want to see the DRX version 2 of Deft and Pyosik and Barrel. You guys get excited because you saw some good games from Pyosik and you saw one good game of Alistair from Barrel. But you have not yet prepared yourself for the rock bottom floor of this team, which we also saw in that same telecom war. If you watched Pyosik's egregiously bad Vi gameplay in game number 2 of that series, this is the Pyosik floor, man. He's never been consistent. He's always been super streaky. There really is not a lot to be hyped about this team. They absolutely should have kept Cuz in this situation, guys. Perfect. He's a rookie. He's having some troubles. And this is not a team that, they came off losing to Guangdong Freaks, which, to be fair, also did beat D+ tonight. So maybe they're a little bit more legit than we thought.
3 in a row for the Freaks.
they're looking better, so maybe that's not super embarrassing. But this KT roster is going to have they were going to live up their roller coaster name even more than they usually do with better rosters, because it's going to be a high one. You're going to be on the slow ride up to the top, just onto the top of the roller coaster, and then you're just going to fall straight down to the absolute bottom. This is a fraudulent team. They will get absolutely bodied when it comes to playoffs. In fact, now with Guangdong looking better, are they even going to be top 5? Stay tuned.
I mean, yes, right? Of course. Also,
is Damwon even going to be top 5? Damwon lost to KT.
Damwon is out. It's time for the Freaks. It's all about the bull show. Yeah, like Damwon has to be like in this as well.
No, are they going to be top 5? If Guangdong is better, like that's a good question.
Yeah.
If D+ and Guangdong are better than them, and we assume T1, Genji.
But that's what I'm saying. Is D+ better than KT?
I think they are. I mean,
they lost to them, right?
They did, but that was the first week of competition, and last week I think they looked a lot better. So,
and then today they got shit on by the Freaks.
Yes,
everybody's getting shit on by the Freaks. That's the new LCK meta.
Yep.
It's Bull's world, and we're just living in it.
Look, everyone gets shit on by everyone, and Genji and T1 run the region. That's what it'll end up being.
Probably. Well, just some pushback here. Perfect is a rookie, which means generally he's at least going to get better over time. Not, he's going to become.
How can you get better if you're already perfect? I don't get it.
Yeah, the
yeah, but you're forgetting that Pyosik is going to get worse over time. So,
well,
he's already peaked.
Doesn't Pyosik normally turn it on for like playoffs? He looks like clunky during.
I mean, he's had some really good games to start out the split. He had some very good games, but he's quickly regressing to the mean.
Yeah. Also, this last game, so they played this morning by the time that we recorded, and they just beat the shit out of the Giga Chad OK Bros. And I think that was
that team is terrible.
Yes, but that's exactly what KT needed after kind of getting slapped around a little bit. Like, it wasn't close. They like beat the shit out of him, and it was kind of painful. Barrel played like Maokai support and was just it was pretty mean. It was pretty mean. What do you think of this here, Dom? Do you think KT that fraudulent? What do you fraudulent scale Monte's fraudulency of KT? How about that?
I mean, I don't think that they're that fraudulent compared to like what a realistic expectation of them should be. I mean, they should place somewhere between like 4th and 6th in the league, like almost guaranteed, right? That they're not going to be like one of the worst teams in LCK because the bottom.
It would be hard for them to fall below 6th with the way the way the rest of the teams are looking,
and it's hard for them to be above 4th. Like even if Damwon collapses and like we end up finding out that the Freaks are actually just frauds, they could still be 4th and not be competitive with the top of the table, which happens actually a decent amount in LCK, where there's like a big divide between the top like 2 or top 3 teams and everyone else. But yeah, I mean, like I don't think that they're fraudulent compared to like what a real expectation of them should be. It's just that like the fans have this thing in their mind where like these guys won Worlds not that long ago. It's like they could be really good again. It's like number one, when they won Worlds, the person that got World Finals MVP is no longer on their team, and the person that was the actual MVP of all of Worlds, who was like probably one of the best players we've seen it like in terms of just a full Worlds tournament in Zika, is no longer there, and now Zika is just playing Corki and like sprinting it on purpose.
Stop playing fair.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that like this team will just be okay. You know, I think that the problem that this team lacks is they just don't have that much like firepower. Like Deft is not the same Deft that people have in their mind. You know, like he's not like this hyper, like he's not Viper, right? He's like kind of a, they're not going to be a strong in lane bot lane with Deft and Barrel. Like they'll be okay. Maybe they'll like be able to play like good matchups, but they aren't going to be able to compete with the top end of bot lanes in LCK. So I think that this team, when they play against better teams, will just lack firepower. Like who are they going to play through? Like where are the leads going to come from in the early game? It's all going to have to come from like Pioshik, like getting ganks off and getting people ahead. They won't have any real just points of power to play around unless Perfect actually is able to just be like a real carry top in LCK. I mean, BDD is always just doing his job. He's consistent. I mean, he's pretty good by LCK standards, but I just think that they just don't have enough to beat top teams. Like when you think about the laners that are on Genji, you think about like T1, you think about Hanwha Life. Maybe Hanwha Life, they can win soul lanes or something, but like you get the point. They just are going to be outmatched by top teams.
Yeah, I too don't think this is super fraudulent here, Monty, just because it really depended if you bought stonks in KT. And Light, if you could full screen me, please, real quick. I've got something for the haters here. Like, if you bought stonks in it, that's on you, because it's really all about the homie, the general. So if you bought stonks in them, that's because your friendship was based too much on Pioshik. It was actually about Umti. And
I
Casey
wish
can
Umti was
take
on this team, by the
Pioshik.
way. I desperately wish Umti was on this version of Casey. I wish Cuz was
Okay.
still here.
That's sad. When you wish Cuz was still here.
Hey, Cuz had a good summer season in Worlds, and he's doing really well on Guangdong now.
I mean, Cuz has just always been like it's the same thing at Worlds, right? It's like you can play two champions, like, and then there's just a massive drop off between those champions and everything else.
Yeah. All right. I agree with Dom here. I don't think it's too fraudulent. I think it's just the hype kind of creeped up a little bit because the DRX World Champs got their band back together and people bought stonks. They seem 4-5, possibly 6 if freaks get it together. All right. Dom, what do you got for some of the most fraudulent of 2024?
The most fraudulent of 2024.
Yeah, let's just
I think
make some
TL.
prediction.
I think TL is pretty fucking fraudulent, man.
No,
Like this team is pretty hard to watch.
Put my poster up.
Yeah, they're pretty fraudulent. I mean, their games have not looked good. Like they should be a team that's top 3 in the league, right? They should be better than a team like FlyQuest, at least at the beginning. I mean, FlyQuest is incorporating Busio, who's still super young, and like, you know, like he's playing with a player that's a rookie. They have a pure rookie bot lane. Like Jensen is old and supposed to be washed at this point. You look at TL and their games are so long. Like their game versus IMT, they have a massive lead and it takes them so long to actually close out the game. Like they're just such an NA team where you have insane early lead and we're winning the game in like 37 minutes, 40 minutes. I don't believe in Yeon and his development like at all. Like I don't ever think that he'll be top tier.
Nope.
It feels like he just doesn't have that it factor that you want to see out of, you know, young AD carries that are taking the next step forward. I just don't see it from Yeon. So when I look at this team, like sure, okay, they got a win over IMT, they got a win over Shopify Rebellion, they lost to 100 Thieves, they got their ass beat by FlyQuest. I just don't believe in them, and they should be better than they're going to end up looking. Like it should have been a very clear top 4 and bottom 4 in LCS. I think the way that most people had it was like Cloud9 1, Energy 2, TL 3, FlyQuest 4, and then like the bottom 4 would be like big gap, and then Shopify Rebellion, Dignitas, Immortals, and 100 Thieves. Like because 100 Thieves obviously is incorporating a 17-year-old rookie. Quid didn't look great. Like they have essentially a new team. That's what the distinction should have been. I'm not sure the TL is going to be a solid 4th place. Like I think that they could easily drop games. They could end up finishing the split 7-7 or something like that.
I mean, I was never sold on this roster. It's the same principal flaws that were in the roster construction last year, which is that you're using your import slots in very strange
They only
ways.
have one import, technically.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true, actually. They do only have one import now. And they could import an AD carry. They could import a new mid laner, and maybe that will be in the cards for summer. But it just seems like when two of your principal carry positions are overwhelmingly weak, there isn't anything for like Umti and Core JJ to support here. You know what I mean? Like
I mean, I think
there
Core
isn't.
JJ has been pretty fraudulent for like a couple of years now. He just
Sure,
gets the
sure.
pass forever. Like I've noticed this about Core. Like I like Core. Core is somebody who like I've had a conversation with. I respect him. I think his play has not been like above average in LCS since maybe like spring 2022. Like I just don't think that he's playing well at all. Like there's so many games like this Rakan game was. I mean, it's partly on him. I feel like it's him and both carries that are actually losing them the games or like losing them situations, losing them fights. Like I feel like he just has regressed a lot in recent years.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like 2 years. I feel like you've talked him up as being like, hey, he's always gonna be solid back in 2022 at least. So I guess 2 years is about right. But
Yeah, and like spring. I mean, him and Han Sama were like legit. They couldn't play bot lane. They were just playing like Seraphine Jinx every single game bot lane. They were not a dominant bot lane. They weren't a good bot lane in LCS.
yeah, but I thought we chalked that one up to fucking Hansama just getting a case of the NA.
Yeah, I mean, neither of them looked good. I mean, there was some awful
fair,
like
that's fair.
Core JJ and Mumu games that I remember like very distinctly from 2022, and then 2023. I think he was just not great, like pretty average for most of it, and the beginning of this year started out pretty bad for him as well. So I just feel like it's been a while since we've seen Core JJ smurfing. I mean, the thing used to be, if you remember like lock-in of 2021 and just like how the team looked, it used to be that him and Tactical were killing bot lane every single game.
Oh yeah.
Like, and then Tactical would get caught late game, whatever. Like, he would just do his like tactical bullshit. But the narrative was these guys will kill you in lane. They're our best laning bot lane in North America. They will just kill you in lane every single game. They get a kill like level 1, level 2.
I'm curious, do you have any LPL potential frauds based on the rosters that have been announced so far in the first couple weeks of competition? Do you think
Any
somebody's
LPL
really going to
frauds?
underperform?
I mean, like it depends on what type of frauds are we talking about. Because there's like, I mean, LPL is 17 teams, right? So like, how fraudulent are we talking?
Let's say that one team that people actually expected to be good and is maybe going to be more middle of the table and not actually a contender. Is that NIP right now, for example?
I mean, I still think NIP will be like top 6. Like my realistic perception is like, okay, there's going to be BLG, JDG, Weibo, NIP, Top Esports, and LNG. That's probably going to be your top 6. And then after that, like as long as those teams are all placing top 6, I don't consider them like too fraudulent. Like maybe if JDG actually got 6th, maybe they would be pretty fraudulent if they've placed that low. But when you look at like the other teams, I don't think any of the teams under that can break into that top 6. Like I still think NIP will just be good enough player for player to be able to beat the other teams. I mean, EDG is a team that people thought would be maybe like middle of the table, like they would be a low playoff team, and they look terrible. Like they actually look like they have no brain anymore after Mako was ripped off the team. So they're down there, I would say. OMG is super fraudulent. WE is 2-1 right now, but they played some disgusting games. Like they lost to OMG, they beat AL, and then this FPX series they should not have won. That team looks on paper like it should be good. If you look at the roster, or not good, but at least be like solid. I mean, they have Fofo, Prince, Iwandi, Hang, and Wayward, and Prince looks completely washed. Like he just doesn't look like he's close to the same player that he was at the end of 2022, beginning of 2023. Fofo,
So sad.
I mean, he's been decent in LPL. Like he was always the weakness of EDG, but that was, it being the weakness of a top team, being like a middle of the pack player on a top team doesn't necessarily mean you're bad. But yeah, he's not great. Wayward has been wayward, and then yeah, I mean the rest of the team is just nothing surprising. So maybe WE could be considered a fraudulent team, but I don't think there's anyone that's super fraudulent yet.
I mean, I guess maybe it's Rare Adam ending up with Vikla. It'd be like, oh, we're gonna get that young guy, that rookie of the split. You know, it was NA. He got a
Yeah,
case of
Vikla
the
is
NAs.
really terrible. He is just a horrible player.
We watched.
I
He
mean,
played Corgi and he just didn't win. How do you lose a Corgi on the old
Who
patch?
is worse? Who is worse, Zeka or Vikla on Corki?
I would say,
That's a good one.
I would still say that it's probably Vikla. I mean, if you threw
Wow,
Vikla into that
really?
game, yeah, if you threw Vikla into that game versus T1, I think he would probably run it down even harder.
I didn't see the Vikla game. That's why I'm asking. I just saw the horrendous Zeka game.
I mean, Vikla is like underperforming on Corki when he's playing against IG. Zika is losing to like T1 playing Corki. So I'll say the guy who's losing to IG, who's having like a bad performance on Corki versus IG, it's probably worse than any performance you could have versus T1.
Fair. Those are some of our fraudulent picks for 2024. If you guys at home have some fraudulent picks for us, who do you think is going to be the biggest fraud as we turn the page into the new year? Let us know in the comments below over at our YouTube channel or in the comments on Twitter, wherever you can find us here on Last Free Nation. Do I have one? I don't think I really have one, because when I think about it,
I mean,
I
Rogue
think
is
you're right.
massive frauds.
Yeah, I don't feel.
That's true. I mean, Carmine Corp also like came in with
Yeah,
a certain
I was
amount
gonna
of
say maybe it's
expectation.
Carmine Corp.
Yeah.
That was like that felt very tough. Just as a team that came on in, you get Yamato, you have your squad together, and maybe it's Saken. Saken is that's tough. We're piling it
Yeah, I
on the
mean, I
young
just think
kid,
that
but
like
that's pretty tough.
I mean, I think that the way you have to look at it is this: like K Corp, there was expectations, but there's a lot of uncertainty with K Corp. When they came in, it's like, how are these ERL players going to actually look in LEC? Whereas Rogue has no excuse to be tied with K Corp at the bottom of the table. Like how is Rogue 2-7 when they got Marcoon, who's supposed to be a good jungler? Larson is supposed to be someone who's one of the best in the entire league, right? And then you have Comp, who was on that team as well. You get a really hyped rookie in Zoelis, and Shigenda has been there and supposed to be good at like you have a bunch of pieces that are supposed to be solid, and you're actually just tied for last place. That's pretty fucking fraudulent.
There you go. All right. I think those are
All
some
right.
good picks.
Yep, there you go. Let us know in the comments below who you think is the most fraudulent, or who you agree with the most. Speaking of LEC, it's time for some high key, low key, no key for LEC. The chances for our teams to win the winter split. Let's get into it. All right, there you have it. 8 teams into the winter group stage after the winter regular season has been done, so that
Oh
they
no,
can
it's just called
qualify.
Winter Playoffs now. I know
God
it's
damn it, dude.
confusing
No.
because they keep changing it.
No, it's so much
You're
less
getting-
confusing now, I think.
Yeah, it
Because
is. It is.
It's
It is.
much
it
less
feels like
confusing now.
I feel like this should just be the playoffs. Like everyone called it the playoffs when it was groups before, but now
Yeah.
it's just essentially it's the same exact format, by the way. It's just in a playoff bracket, so the whole thing is playoffs.
Got
Yep.
Well, we've got our top 8 teams here from the winter season. High key, low key, no key, excited for teams to win the winter split. What do you think?
Which teams have the best chance? Like, which are the high
I
key
mean, I think G2 will
teams?
just win.
Yes, I think that's the. Sadly, that is everybody's conclusion.
I think like when the LEC looks like I said this on stream, but my general take on the LEC is whenever it looks like, damn, like G2's not playing as well as you expect, and I guess some other teams are like looking better than you'd expect. Who's gonna win? It's like always G2 that wins. That's just how LEC works.
Well, I think also the last hopes of G2 not winning kind of evaporated this week when we had some good Caps games again. Because every time you think, oh man, Caps isn't looking so good again, is there an angle for somebody else to win? And then he comes back and has some solid performances. It just feels kind of doomed. Yeah, and especially because that game the Akali game was against Fnatic, who a lot of people would be tapping as potentially like the second best team, especially with Humanoid actually performing a lot better recently than we're typically used to seeing him in the regular season, which has been a nice surprise. But as far as rosters that can kind of player for player match up to G2, maybe Fnatic was that hope. And I guess Fnatic is still kind of in the high key category if we had to pick kind of two favorites. Do you like BDS, Dom? Are you bold enough to put them there?
I mean, I think there's a chance they get like second or something. The thing I hate about BDS is that they have no early game. The way that they play competitive league is they just like run it down for the first 10 minutes and then they just show up to objectives and have like better setups and win like that. The thing I compare them to is that they remind me of like TSM in North America, but back when TSM was good in like 2017, where you never actually felt like they were a good team because they were so AFK, but they just had better setups than other teams in around objectives, so they would just win games that it felt like they had no business winning. If you look at BDS, they're losing early game to like everyone. Like they actually are just losing early game to everyone, but then they just win anyways. Like Sheo starts the game, runs it down like 3 times, then he's like, all right, now I'm just gonna like play well. And he plays team fights pretty well, shows up to objectives, and they win. So maybe that's good enough to win LEC. I hope not. I feel like you have to have like some idea of how to play early game in order to win. And when you compare that to like Fnatic and G2, sometimes Fnatic and G2 they overforce and they like make bad plays, but generally they know what they should be doing and they like progress the game to a point where when they win games it feels like they were in control most of the time. And also the thing about G2 when you consider how strong they're going to be going forward is the fact that their losses are like very easy to excuse. Like they won every single game besides for that first game versus Rogue where Caps like completely ran it down. That was like the 0-5 Nico game where he just completely sprinted it, where people were like, what the fuck is he doing? He's trolling. Like that was that game. And the other one was when they played Sona Seraphine bot lane. They tried to play the Sona Seraphine and like just stall out a game, and that didn't end up working. That's nerfed on the next patch, out of the meta. They probably wouldn't play that again. So if you think about their losses, like every other game they've won. You know, whereas like when BDS lost games, like G2 comprehensively beat BDS in that game that they played, right? Like they just look like the better team. And BDS has had so many shaky games, whereas at least G2's had like a clean game every now and then.
What about
Well, they
go ahead, Monty.
no, it's fine. Go.
I was
I was
gonna
going to
say
talk that they also like lost to Carbine Corp, but it was also kind of a meaningless game for BDS. So I don't want to read too much into that one, but they did kind of get mega draft diffed in that game with the Olaf pick, and it felt like they were not anticipating that coming, and they really didn't have many chances to win because of the threat on the back line. I thought it was a very good like R5 pick.
I was gonna say Mad Lions. Mad Lions coy after the whole Fnatic like just showing off hands. Every single person. You had the Varus top lane coming out. It felt like that was a very cool. Hey, you don't know a lot of our names. Doesn't fucking matter. We're here, and it doesn't matter that you're the big name team. Doesn't matter. You guys been together for a little while. We're gonna punch you in the face, and we'll fight with anyone. Yes, it didn't show a lot of brain, but it showed a lot of hands and it showed a lot of like moxie. And I think when it comes to trying to break in to the circle of elite in Europe with G2, with Fnatic, you need something like that. It is what KC was supposed to be like. That kind of ego and hubris that you hate, but you have to respect.
I mean,
That's
maybe
what
from
I
the
saw
fan
from
base,
that.
but not from like the actual players. Like I didn't
You're
think that we're
right,
gonna have picks from like Socken that are like really interesting, or like Cabo is going to play anything that we didn't expect. I mean, when you watch them play in EU Masters, like they were pretty standard as a team. Like Cabo would play strong, like weak side champions. Like I mean, yeah, and then they would just play standard. Synchron would play just tank junglers. They would play hyper carries mid like Azir. Just Kalist would carry the games. I don't know. It never felt like they were a very unique team.
But my point, I guess more specifically, was like that this is what you kind of want and need from a team, I think, to try and punch your way up to G2 and Fnatic. What do you make of the chances for this type of Mad Lions team that isn't, Niski ran, that isn't kind of, I guess, rotation based and out based, that kind of based, map based, to fight against AG2 against a Fnatic?
I think they're completely fucked if they play best of fives versus those types of teams.
Yeah.
Like when I see those types of picks, I mean that to me is like how you win best of ones. But when I see like your strategies being like playing unique champions. I think that those unique champions like just end up getting banned eventually in a best of 5, and then it's like, oh, now at some point you're having to play more standard, and as soon as that happens, you're just gonna get rolled over. Um, yeah, I don't know.
I mean,
I think
it's
that,
also
that
that
they're
they've
overperforming expectations. Like, but a lot of them, like, yeah, they look cheesy. They don't look legit to me. Alvaro looks really legit. I'd say Alvaro looks like probably the second best support in the league behind Mickey X. But outside of that, I don't see like how this team is going to beat top teams because I think they're just outmatched. I think Merwin is interesting. He's probably like more surprising, but what I'm saying here is their best players are jungle, support, and top lane. And I feel like that's never a recipe to win Europe. I feel like in order to win Europe, you need to have a good mid laner. You need to have a top tier mid laner and an AD carry that's like consistent, or you just can't win.
I also think they've gotten a lot of these wins in best of ones by having a kind of very aggressive early game. They haven't looked as good, which is natural, I think, with so many young players on this roster in the mid and late game when it comes to their macro. So if we're saying like, oh, this team, like, what are the odds that they're actually going to be able to win like a best of 5, having like strong laning phases every game without the other team being able to do some, counter picks potentially in draft or figure them out? Like BO1s are so weird, especially when you run 3 of them every week, because it makes it hard to prep when there are players like Merwin, for example, that require potentially extra attention to draft phases. But when you have a week to prepare for this one roster and this one team, that's where I think things start to get very different. I think that's where things start to get very different. So, look, I think I'm pretty no key just because of the number of rookies on this roster right now. Maybe in a year, they're going to have that kind of veterancy and a little bit more stability and a higher floor, but they've already overperformed expectations. So I don't know if we can really put them higher than that. I don't think there's any shot that they like take the title.
Do you think that they win any series in the playoff format? Like, do you think that they
Oh,
place like
wow.
5th, 6th instead of 7th, 8th?
I mean, honestly, I think the answer to that is like, do we believe that potentially Giant X or Heretics could beat them? And the answer to that depends, I think, on Perks' performance because he's coming off a pretty terrible week. But he also is Perks, and so we know that he can step up and has in the past, even when he's had his low points. So I think potentially there are a couple teams they could beat, but I wouldn't put them as a favorite against anybody else.
So if we're both no key, you're both no key on Mad Lions. Who are you low key excited about?
Look, I'll just put it out there. Like the teams that I would put as low key, I think would be like SK, because at least they started the split strong and looked pretty clean and in some of their wins, and they seem to have solid fundamentals. And we also know that Niski led teams can make deep runs even with mediocre early kind of like early group stage performances. He's a player who's been there a lot of times, and we got to see Mad Lions with a pretty bad like round robin stage go in and actually do very well in the playoffs of a split. So I would also put Heretics in there just because these guys can't be counted out. Like, you can't say that Perks isn't going to snap into form, even though I find that extremely unlikely to happen. There isn't a 0% chance that this team, with the players that they have doing very well and making a top performance here. I mean, Wonder and Yankos have been good. So there's another low key one for you. So I think those two are probably my low key expectation ones. Maybe BDS as well, low key. But the rest I think are no key. So I guess in my no key category would kind of be like Vitality, Mad Lions, and Giant X.
Yeah, the KTEU right here with Wonder Yankos and Perks get the band back together. Dom, who
I
are you
like this
low
one
key?
better though. I like this one better.
I can tell you didn't put him in the most fraudulent of 2024.
Yeah, because this is the one you want to do well because you've seen the intense upside of this, and people will be like, "Oh, but Monte, you saw the intense upside of DRX." I did, but also that DRX peak, they were patch zerging for
Yes.
Worlds, and I had to watch them the whole fucking year. Whereas, like, I've seen G2 do well for an extended period of time with this core of players.
Yeah, I hate that about Worlds. It's like It's crazy to see how the popular opinion of players changes after Worlds. Like it's one tournament on one patch, and somehow it by far overwrites the first 9 months of the year. Like it's not even close. Like if you play well for the first 9 months and then you play bad in Worlds, like player value goes down the drain. We see the same thing with Niski, right? We see it every single year in LEC. He just like dominates fucking LEC. He looks super fucking good, like a top tier mid laner. He won a championship last year. He won spring in LEC last year. His Gragas was like fucking unbeatable in Europe, and then he goes internationally, plays against like fucking I don't even know who it was. He plays against some Asian mid laner, gets stomped one time, and it's like, damn, he sucks. Get him off the fucking team. Like I really don't care about fucking like that World's performance compared to how you've consistently looked throughout the year. It's part of the reason why I rate Chovy so high, even though like everyone just hates him now in LCK. Everyone just acts like he's just dog shit. Like so, yeah, I just wanted to comment on that. In terms of like low key excited, I'm actually for some reason low key excited about Giants. Like I think that they could like they're gonna lose their first series, but I think that they could make like fifth, sixth, and like maybe even play like a decent fifth, sixth match. Like maybe they end up like sneaking their way into like top four. Because if you think about the teams that actually look decent right now, I think the G2, BDS, and Fnatic are probably the three best teams in the league. And then outside of them, it's like I'm not 100% confident that Giants can't beat a team like Vitality consistently, or they can't beat like SK. Like they looked like they were getting a little bit better, and I think they have some interesting drafts. And I think they have the pieces that you need. It's mainly just down to Jackie's performance. But I think Jackie's actually like he had a really bad week one. I think he's been getting better throughout the week. So like, yeah, maybe they do something. Like I could see it. Peach kind of has been like low key smurfing in LEC, even if you consider the one match that they lost this week, which was to G2. Like Peach kind of just shit on Yike. It's tough to say. I know it's like a tough pill to swallow because like no one really like wants Peach to do well. But like as somebody who's watched the games, like he objectively has been a pretty strong player in LEC.
Los Gigantes. I just love that team name. Just saying it in Spanish, even though it's like Spanish English now, and they don't even have a Spanish players anymore.
Yeah.
And yeah, Peach. I think the reputation of Peach got so fucked up from last year, but you know, the expert calls it as he sees it. Giant X. All right, that is Dom's
Well, I mean,
low-key excitement.
the thing about LEC is you really people's perception of you is so inflated by your like initial impression because the matches happen so quickly. Like Peach at the end of summer was fine. I mean, he's part of that team that ended up like playing in finals, and he was able to play like Maokai, play like he had some good Lee Sin games. He was able to actually acclimate and look like an LEC level player. His first week was just so fucking dreadful that it stuck with people's like minds permanently. And I think we see the same thing with teams that have done really well in the first week. They don't get the same flame as teams that have looked like, bad the first week. They get it together towards the end. Compare the way that people view like this Giant X team versus a team like Mad Lions who started 3-0 in the first week of summer and then like fell off a fucking cliff and lost like 5 in a row to end the split. Like they lost 5 in a row and people didn't even play. They're like, well, they were qualified. Who gives a fuck? Like they'll probably get it together. Like there's so much credit given to teams that do well. I mean, Mad Lions is another example of this. They went 2-1 in the first week. They looked pretty good in the first week. This week was pretty fucking sketchy. Like they had that massive comeback. They had the base race throw against Fnatic, and they had the Vitality game where like Hilly completely sprinted it. Those are 2 of their wins, right? And they end up being 5-4. They could easily lose both those games and be 3-6. But people act like they're like they have proven that they are like a legit team. Like, dude, I don't care that much about best of ones. The one thing I've learned from watching this LEC format over and over again is that you have to completely just wipe your memory of the best of ones the second you hit this stage. There's been tons of teams that have looked really, really good in best of ones that just looked mediocre or bad in the best of threes and best of fives. They don't come close to winning. Vitality last year was the best team in winter. They were the number 1 seed in winter. What happened as soon as they got into playoffs? They were like losing to fucking SK Gaming. Neon got kicked like 2 weeks later. You just have to completely write off the best of ones when you get to this stage. Like the tournament moves too fast.
It's almost like there's a really big difference in team skill and preparation between when you play 3 opponents in best of ones in 1 week versus 1 or 2 opponents in a best of 3 or best of 5, right? When you actually can focus on one. And it's almost like the format that they've invented is testing for 2 different things, which gives us 2 very different results in terms of who is the best team. Weird. Maybe we shouldn't do that. Maybe we should just only have best of threes.
No, I think
Best
best of threes are
double
just
elimination.
it's bad viewer experience, honestly. Watching best of threes.
Truly the worst.
All right. Those are our high key, low key, no key for our LEC squads for the winter split. Let us know who you think is the low key. I think it's really easy. Everyone would be like, yeah, it's going to be G2. So if you got a low key pick, let us know who and why in the comments. Monte, we have a new segment coming up in our next spot here.
Yeah, with no graphics yet, but we'll get to that, guys. So Esports Bet is back with us this year. Thank you very much for them to continue supporting Last Free Nation. So we are going to start a new segment called The Long Shot. And this is for only the craziest bets. As usual, guys, you can sign up with our referral link, which you can see on our screen, or click the link below, get your typical 50% deposit bonus for new users. But we also have a new code, which is if you go to esportsbet.io/promotion, or you go there and you click the promotion tab on the left-hand side of your screen, you too can enter into the little box in the top right that says promotional code LFN777. And what you will get is a 200% deposit bonus up to $200 USDT or its equivalent in another cryptocurrency. And this is not only for if you are a new user, it is for literally any user. So if you already deposited with them, now you can get a big deposit bonus. Of course, terms and conditions are right there for you to read and take a look at. So check it out. But this is for if you guys have any crazy parlays, something that's very unlikely to happen. But I think this will be a fun segment.
Yeah. So this one is it's called the long shot. So thanks to our friends over at Esports Bet, head on over again. And the important thing that Monte said earlier, doesn't matter if you've registered or not, or I guess use the code or not. It's not just for new users. Come back on in
For anybody.
and it helps us out too. Thanks to our friends over at Esports Bet. The long shot. What are some unlikely outcomes that we can make happen?
All right, I've got one
Across
for you. You guys
multiple
ready?
leagues. Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So I am a strange believer in Shopify Rebellion. I do not think that they are as bad as their record may imply. I think that in some ways they've both been a beneficiary, I think, of best of ones, but also a victim of best of ones. If you think about their match that they played in the first week versus FlyQuest, I think they did a very good job of attempting to come back in that game, despite some disastrous early game consequences. They beat Cloud9 this week. It's a very weird draft. I don't think that's going to be replicated. Mistakes were made, I think, by Cloud9 picking basically full low range composition into Giga tanks with hard CC engage and no split pushing pressure. So that was a fun one, and Shopify Rebellion took the win. So my long shot this week, and I love Insanity's weird champ pool. I find this team to be very entertaining. I'm parlaying both of their games. So a win against NRG and a win against Dignitas. For
3 games. Do you want to put the 100 Thieves one as well? Like,
yeah, let's do it.
It's pretty brutal.
okay.
Let's do it.
All right.
Why not? You know, it is the long shot. So that'll be 13.9, almost 14 odds on the Shopify Rebellion 3-0 week. So let's go ahead and chuck 250 on that one, and we'll see if we actually end up hitting it. So there's mine for you guys.
All right. I think for me, insider information. And Ole threw it out there as well on the podcast because Ole just does not know how to not talk. Immortals has an insane scrim record, and all the teams want to scrim Immortals because
What?
they've been they've been very good. And
Ah.
I feel like this team is the reason why that when I asked coaches is like this team knows their identity and how they want to play a lot faster than everyone else, especially a team like them that just kind of came together. So Cloud9, maybe a little bit of a hangover after getting smacked by Shopify and being like, you know what, that was just a draft issue. It really wasn't a gameplay issue. Just right off the top, I'm not parlaying anything because this is already enough. It's like 5.7 here for Immortals, just
Easy.
straight up. Yeah, I'll take that one. Give me Immortals over Cloud9 in game number 1 to kick off the week. Then Cloud9 loses, they'll be pissed, and then they'll beat the shit out of FlyQuest later.
All right, we'll do 250 on that one too. We'll do 250
Yeah.
on that one too.
Yeah.
You have any wacky ones there, Dom?
Yeah, I'm just gonna do a parlay of LEC of all the matches. I'm gonna go G2 beating Fnatic,
right.
G2 beating Giants, Fnatic beating Mad, BDS beating Heretics, and Vitality upsetting SK. That'll be my parlay.
Vitality upsetting SK. Okay, so let me get that straight. So BDS over Heretics. I'm going to put all these in.
Yeah.
BDS over Heretics.
Fnatic over Mad.
G2 over Giant X. Fnatic over Mad. And Vitality over SK. Okay, so the one underdog. You're still at 5.5 for that, so we'll put 250 on that too.
That's a long enough shot for me.
It's long enough.
Anything over
There we
5,
go.
I feel like, is long enough.
So
Yeah.
we'll,
The only one that would be close to like if we went heads up would be Giants over G2, which is just not.
Yeah, that would instantly like quadruple it.
Right, yeah,
Take my money.
that would be a
That
little
would be a
much.
donation.
All right, we'll check in and see how we did. If anybody gets the long shot next week, there will be celebration whenever some at one point in time one of these will hit, and it will be hilarious.
Yep.
All right, thank you for humoring me, guys.
Yeah. Now, thanks to our friends over at eSportsBet. Make sure to look up the rules regulations for your region and play responsibly. All right. Last up, Galaxy Brain Club time. Time for the big brains on our spring split dark horse contenders of the major regions. So we know who the favorites are in each region, but who's a team that isn't a favorite that might sneak their way into a NRG-esque run? Let's get into it. All right. So with that said, Monte, let's start on over at the LCK. Who is a team that isn't T1 or Gen G that could win?
Okay, so I think there are several angles you could take here. I'm not going to take the Hanwha one of like Zeka actually plays champions that he can play, like Akali that are meta that he just doesn't pick this season because Dandy is telling him not to for whatever reason. I obviously am not going to pick KT because I think they're frauds. I don't think Kwangdong Freaks is a real dark horse yet, even though important upset victories, it has to be said. Like Kwangdong now,
Bull and Bulldog,
Bull,
baby.
Bull and Bulldog together, and obviously you love to see kind of Cuz and Dudu, who is always slept on and is actually a very good top laner and was like
I mean, he
probably
named himself Dudu. Like, what do you want from the guy?
the memes write themselves. You know, now we have
Yeah.
Dudu, Bull, and Bulldog all on the same team. It's a little awkward up in there. And
If you want people to consider you a good player, don't name yourself fucking TSM Lost or KDF Dudu. Like, come on.
So,
Lord's getting
and
astray.
even though D Plus is coming off of, you know, a loss to Kwangdong, which may not be as embarrassing as it used to be, and they lost to Gen G and they lost to KT. I will say that D Plus's last week was very encouraging. And the reason why I'm saying this is because, look, they were lost last year. They didn't have any kind of like mid or late game shot calling. That's why Bible had to come in, and then they lost lane. So now we've got Aiming and Kellen in the bot lane. We've got Kingen up in the top, Worlds Finals MVP Kingen, Lucid the rookie, and Showmaker. And the real key to all of this was, is Showmaker going to have an improved performance? And the answer has been, surprisingly, he's had some really good games. Probably a lot of you saw his Kassadin pentakill last week. He had a really good Silas game in the match that they played against Gen G.
LeBlanc game.
Yeah. Yes.
Not the one today.
Yes.
The other one.
Yeah, so like we've been waiting for Showmaker to have Showmaker level performances for a long time because he looked kind of like a zombie last year, if we're being honest. Yeah, it picked up a little bit at the end, but he didn't seem to be super motivated. He said himself in interviews that he was burnt out, and now it's looking a little bit better. And honestly, Lucid has been very good for a rookie player. The way that he team fights on some of the tanks like Sejuani and Rel has been, I think, really solid. Even when the rest of his team is doing really dumb stuff in team fights, he often is peeling very effectively or making very good engages. So I have a lot of hope for Lucid as a rookie player. And I think that by the end of this split, D plus will be in a pretty good spot and could maybe challenge as high as third place.
I D plus, really. Showmaker has had some really good plays and I think has been pretty consistent, but I think you're just it just feels like you're putting a lot onto Lucid to have to step up here
Lucid's
and
been good, man.
I know, and
This has not been
yes.
Lucid's fault. This has not been. I think Lucid's has been good and will get better. And I think what's nice is that this team actually has a solid identity that they can work around now. One of the big problems last year was like, oh, here comes Canyon on Nico, and then here he is on Sejuani the next game. And because their shot calling was bad, they never actually were able to macro with any of their team compositions unless they completely shit stomped the early game. And even then, sometimes it was a little bit dicey. So I think that having them be on rails more or less in terms of team compositions, focusing Lucid for the most part on these tanks has allowed them to kind of solidify a team identity. And that I think will do them wonders in the long run. So they're 2-3 right now. I don't think they're going to be 2-3 by the end of, they're going to have a negative win rate by the end of spring.
What do you think, Dom? I guess that has to be your pick unless you're going with
They're going to beat Hanwha
the
this week,
Freaks.
by the way. The fucking Freaks were a trap game. They'll beat Hanwha. Watch.
Okay. All right.
They're gonna cave Zeka's head in this week.
Oh my god, dude.
I don't know. Showmaker kind of owned Zeka last time they played, so I guess it does kind of make sense. But yeah, I mean, I think the hardest thing is like I was just looking through, and it's like, when was the last time a team that wasn't like looking good won LCK? Like, what was the last time that a team that was not at the top of LCK won LCK? Like, almost never
Griffin?
happens in
Damwon?
LCK.
Sorry, not Griffin. Damwon?
Damwon was at the top.
They were at the top when they won? Shit.
Yep.
Was it like a
It's very hard for like a team that doesn't finish like at least top 3 in the regular season.
There's no NRGs that make a run in LCK. Like when Damwon won, they were like when Damwon won, they three-peated, they were first every single time. It's always the team that's top 2 that ends up winning, essentially. In LCK. So it's like hard for me to pick a dark horse because I feel like LCK is like very tiered. It's like these are our top 2, it's T1 Gen G. Then we have like our 3, 4, 5, which should be just like Damwon, Hanwha Life, and then KT probably. Then we have our 6th place, I guess, which we're giving like KDF, and then everyone else is just gonna be shit. Like it's very hard for me to see that not being like I see like a top 3 and then a 4 to 6 and then 7 to 10, like very blatantly, that I just don't see anyone breaking out of. So maybe like KDF could be a dark horse and maybe they could place like 5th or something or 4th max. But I don't know about like a dark horse that's actually gonna. I don't know a dark horse that could actually like win the league.
Sure. I want to put it. I'm saying like I think that this team will outperform their current expectations and may surprise people. Like I think this team could get 3rd. That's my ceiling. That's my ceiling for D plus.
Yeah, your answer there, Dom. I was close. I thought it was like a 2020 T1, but it was 2019 T1 that won it from 4th place. That's as low as you
they're
get.
like they're like the G2 of LCK though. It's like even if they suck in the regular season, they just turn it on in playoffs, right?
Yeah, but like for example, like Mad Lions was like 3 and 6. They were playing like a tiebreaker to get into like spring last year, and then they just won the entire league. You know, like that just doesn't happen. over there.
That was a great run. That was a great run. That just doesn't happen in the LCK though. Only
Well,
only the
it's
top.
almost like having a larger sample size of games beyond 9 games, instead having a best of 3 double round robin really shows you who the consistent teams are who are going to be able to put up those results. So it's less surprising by the time we reach playoffs.
All right,
I don't know, it might
friends.
just be a format thing.
I don't know.
But
I mean, even when we had best of threes in LCS, we still had some like really like ridiculous runs that went on. So who knows?
If you had Monte continues to talk about format on your bingo card, scratch that one off. He did it again.
never going to
love it.
stop until it's fixed. I'm never going to
know.
stop
I know.
until Worlds is double elimination and best of ones are dead and Swiss is dead.
And Swiss.
And other complaints, new complaints that I will have with new formats until all of the new complaints that I don't know what they are yet are also dead.
There you go. Which means Monty's never going to stop. Tom, in a major region, give me a dark horse.
Let's go for Dark Horse TT making playoffs.
Yes!
Everyone thought this team was garbage, and like I actually kind of like how
the
they
LNG
play.
I watched the LNG match.
Yeah, they won LNG. They won the LNG match, and then they should have like at least won the first game in the Weibo match. So they had a really tough start to the season. They had LNG and Weibo, which is like two of the teams that I have in the top 6 of LPL. And so they're 1-1 right now. But I think that they look a lot better just by like just having the consistent roster and having 1xN just be the starter, because Huan Feng fell off. Like he's washed at this point. He went to support. And now they have actually like a beast young Chinese AD carry. And I always like seeing new players show up in the LPL because they don't do the same bullshit that they do in LEC. Like 1xN will show up. It's like the first day he's playing against Ruler. It's like, you better fucking perform or we're all gonna flame you. Like that is how like he makes one mistake. My chat is like, this guy fucking sucks. Kick him out of the fucking league. Like they get mad like instantly. You have to perform. In LEC, it's like Supa is just a baby 23-year-old rookie. He's been playing competitive for like 5 years. He's a 23-year-old rookie. Like if he makes a mistake, it's just a rookie mistake. Don't be too hard on him. Like you can never know how much they improve. Like it's just way different when you get to like Western rookies. We're still coping about Yeon. He's been playing for a year and a half almost. We're still just coping about Yeon potentially like being a good player. Now, I like the hardcore nature
way,
they have
Tom,
of LPL.
I made this topic purely to mind control you into saying Thunder Talk, by the way.
Nice.
Did you really? That's pretty
Yes.
cool.
Yep.
Because I wanted to talk about them.
I like teams like that. I mean, I just think teams like that are fun. Like that's what I like about LPLs. I like the kind of like a little bit macro stupid, really aggressive like Chinese team. Like I don't know, it's just fun to watch.
Yeah, and 1xN was really fearless in that first match that he played, which was very, it was very fun to watch how aggressive he was. And also, I wanted to just chuck in there, guys, because a lot of you probably haven't seen that many. I mean, if you're a Dom stream aficionado, you probably watch a lot of LPL, but otherwise, you may not know really like how good UCal has like low-key been on this Thunder Talk roster. Like he has been a very good mid laner for a while now, and just nobody saw him play because he was on kind of a bad team. So the fact that this team could potentially be good is very exciting because I think he's very underrated.
Yep.
All right. Thunder Talk as that dark horse team. For me, I mean, I put my money where my mouth is. Immortals. Just give Coach Sharks his first time leaving FlyQuest after he was removed from the role last year and Coach Song was put into the role. World champion Coach Song. Sorry, let me speak respect on his name. And now has a team where he can mold it in an organization that needs direction and has like a lot of infrastructural things in place. So I'm interested and excited about Immortals making playoffs for the first time in what, 4 years, 5 years? Like
So
I don't know.
No, they made it in 2021.
Oh, right, the Gyotto roster.
Yeah.
Yes.
dGon, in dGon's mind, who is not making playoffs in this scenario?
Who's not making it in this scenario? Sorry, Dignitas. It would be Dignitas and I think 100 Thieves. I think it's
all
100
right. I'm
Thieves
into this.
I do think that Shopify Rebellion
I
will
love
get
them.
their shit together. Yes,
I
I
think
know
it'll
you
be
love
just
them.
IMT and Dignitas not making it because they always don't make it because they suck. That's my opinion.
But I think, God, Dignitas with Dove and Rich, I just feel like they're so close put together. XU is a really stand-up guy. We got ourselves the new stand-up
What does
guy
that
in the
mean?
LCS. He's a good guy.
He's a good. Oh, nice.
He's a good guy.
He-
He's a good
Does
guy.
that
not gonna
translate to
date
like
you,
winning games of
dGon.
League
Come
of
on.
Legends, or is that just like
He's a good guy. And he has the right mindset. But I don't know if they're going to be able to get it together in time. So sorry, Dignitas. And they can prove me wrong.
By the way, I need to just break the code for you guys. If you say somebody's a nice guy, that means there's literally nothing else that you could possibly say about them that would be more complimentary. So there you go. It's not he's a great League of Legends player. He's nice.
He's a good guy.
he's a stand-up guy?
He's done the hard work, he's put in the shifts throughout the amateur scene, and now he's getting a shot. He
I
got
wonder if
first
you
blood.
need to be like kind of an asshole to be good at League of Legends. If you look at like all the top players, they kind of have like an edge to them.
Yeah,
You know, like
I knew this one asshole that got banned for a while. He was pretty good.
well, I
for
mean,
the
if you just even
longest
think
time
like
until he
even
got
like
banned.
when you like even Faker, like publicly he doesn't have the edge, but if you watch them like the T1 documentary, like he knows he's the fucking best. Like he knows he's the fucking goat. Like that shit fuels him. Like Caps had the whole fucking Caps note where he was like, he's ending people's careers and stuff. Like I don't know, man. Maybe just to be really good at League, you just need to be like kind of an asshole.
Someone saying Dom's a nice guy. To be honest, I don't think I've ever used that phrase when people ask me about Dom. What I say
Yeah.
about Dom is he's a fucking professional and he's my friend and I like working with him. That's usually what I say.
Amen.
Amen. All right. Cool. Those were our dark horses. You got dark horses gonna win one of these major regions. Let us know. We already kind of went through it with our high key, low key, no key for Europe, so you can read between the lines there. All right. I will say, I don't know why. This week felt like such a long period of time in between the last episode and this episode. Like it just felt like there were a lot of matches. There was a lot of stories going on. And I'm glad that we knocked this one out. So I hope that you guys did too. And if we do special episodes, or you need more League of Legends content or more esports content, make sure to follow Last Free Nation across all of our social media platforms, YouTube or Twitch channel, TikTok, Twitter, Spotify, or wherever you listen to episodes. Did I hit everything, Monte? I think I hit everything there.
Yeah, whatever.
All right.
Good enough.
Dom, just the grind this week?
Yep. As always.
As always, bangers only,
I mean,
Monty.
your break is coming up. Lunar New Year is coming up, Dom, where there's not going to be so many matches.
Yep.
What LPL's off for like 10 days, right?
Yep. I'm going to Europe during it though, so I'll be traveling and
really?
stuff. Yeah. I'll be
For what?
in Europe from then, so I have to like move in and everything and figure out computer situation, everything.
Oh, snap.
Till how long?
Probably until the end of March, probably until the end of like playoffs and stuff.
All
Plan
right.
at least.
Watch out, EU solo queue. He's coming.
Yep.
He's not a nice guy.
Yeah. I'll fit right in. I'm more European anyway.
I know. I know.
Yeah.
Who you got in the Super Bowl?
I mean, I hate the two teams we got. It's so
know you
boring
do.
to me.
No, you just hate them. That's not
Yeah.
boring. I think it's exciting.
I don't know. I would have rather seen Ravens and Lions in the Super Bowl.
Everybody wanted Ravens and Lions. This is the worst timeline. We're living in the worst Super Bowl timeline. But
I mean, Patrick Mahomes probably wins just because he's Patrick Mahomes.
Stop.
awkward.
Look, I didn't want this Super Bowl either, but I think we can all agree that a Niners win is objectively the correct result. Come on,
But who's
Christian
gonna win?
McCaffrey, Debo.
Who's gonna win?
Kittle.
You think Brock Purdy's winning a Super Bowl against Patrick Mahomes?
What a story. No, you're
I
right.
really
This is
hope.
definitely a Patrick Mahomes
God
It just
damn
feels like a
where
Patrick Mahomes
It's the
win.
Mahomes era. You had the Brady
Yeah.
era. This is the Mahomes era. Yeah. 100%. Andy Reid
Dom,
now.
I'm now You know, dGon, you and I are now suffering in the same way that Dom suffered for like 20 years when the Patriots were in the same division as the Miami Dolphins, and now
Oh
we're
yeah,
Broncos
dude.
fans in the
We're
same
just
Yeah.
division
getting
as the Chiefs, and it is
destroyed.
the fucking worst.
And then Herbert's over there as well.
And
Like they're
not only
gonna be
that, but
good
Herbert's over
eventually.
there with Harbaugh now, so cool. Yeah, really great.
Yeah,
We
I mean,
have
the
one.
Broncos have won a Super Bowl recently.
that's
The
true.
Dolphins
That's true.
the Dolphins haven't won a playoff game since I was 12.
Yeah,
I
I can't. We can't bitch too much because here's the thing: is that the Chiefs had to deal with like 20 years of John Elway kicking their ass, so and then Peyton Manning.
yeah.
So it's like what goes around comes around.
I guess what bothers me, Dom, and you'll know this better for the Dolphins. It's like, man, we are wasting some just fucking top tier guys on that aren't quarterback. Like Patrick
Nope,
Surtain's like,
that's the
hey,
tan.
I wanna be here for my whole career. And I was like,
Yeah.
bless your heart, good sir. Like we'll see how long
Hey,
we keep
he's
that
getting
up.
that Walmart money. Don't worry about it. The
Yeah.
reason why he wants to be here is he's going to get the highest, like, fully guaranteed corner contract ever because
Yeah.
they're the richest ownership group. So the money will be good. The
What
facilities will be nice.
what was a player in the Dolphins that was like that just wasted away on the Fins?
I mean, it was different. I mean, Jason Taylor was
Oh,
one
it's
that
Jason Taylor. Yeah, that was
I
it.
don't
like
know,
Jason.
Dan Marino.
Yeah, I mean Dan Marino, but I mean at least that's the era they're at least winning. I
Yeah.
would say Jason Taylor, Zach Thomas was
Zach
I guess I
Thomas,
mean he's like
linebacker.
a
Yeah.
yeah he's a linebacking great. I mean he's a Hall of Famer, right?
Yeah.
Zach
Yeah.
Thomas,
Yeah.
yeah, he's a Hall of Famer. Um, I mean we had
Wait,
Ricky Williams for a little
didn't
bit. He couldn't stop smoking
didn't
weed,
Patrick
but
Surtain the first play for the Dolphins?
pretty sure he
Who
did.
was the cornerback that was there that was like super good? Fuck, what was his name?
Which like what I mean when you say that I'm just thinking about Xavier Howard, but wait, like what era?
Like around that era as well, the Jason Taylor and Zach Thomas era. Who
I don't know.
played
Somebody in chat
cornerback?
will probably have it.
CB. Oh yeah, Ricky Williams.
Ricky Williams was all right. I mean, when we got him, he was like coming off a pretty fucking good season.
I'm actually really sad that the Dolphins exited the playoffs so early this year. They're such a fun team to watch, and like McDaniels is like
I mean, our whole team was
what
hurt. Like people really
I know.
underestimated how hurt we were. Like everyone was focusing on like, oh, Bradley Chubb is out, Jalen Phillips is out, but the one and it's like, okay, Van Ginkel was the back, like he was having an insane season. Van Ginkel, like he was, I mean, people like he was borderline Pro Bowl, and then he got injured as well. Xavier Howard was out. Like everyone, Holland was out. Like everyone just got injured. We literally had 6 starters injured on defense. Like, and not just like any starters, our best starters.
By the way, yes, I had to look it up. I was right. Patrick Surtain made 3 Pro Bowls with the Dolphins back in the day. So
Maybe
it
the
runs in the
family
blood.
bloodline is just cursed.
Yes. All right. Can't wait. Still, guys, we're still waiting on Monte's kid to pick up the PC, the keyboard and mouse, and start his journey as North American savior of North American League of Legends. He's gonna be a middle. All right. You know where to catch all of us. We'll be back next week for another episode of Power Spike. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. All the stuff. It really, really helps us out. And we'll see you next week. See ya.